Hello beautiful people, I'm RaishPhoenix, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make pizza from scratch. If you haven't already, go ahead and click the subscribe button and click the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. Alright, let's get started. For this recipe, you will need bread flour, or you can also use regular flour, sugar, 1 envelope of instant dry yeast, salt, olive oil, 1.5 cups of water, and a sauce and cheese of your choice. I'll also be adding more toppings later, but I'll show you once we get to that point. While I'm prepping the ingredients, I do want to give you guys a heads up that this recipe is to make pretty much 2 medium or 2 large pizza pies depending on how much you stretch the dough out. So if you only want 1 pizza pie, I'd say just whatever I'm putting in, just put half of that amount. So I'm starting off with adding 3.5 cups of flour, and you're going to want to leave the flour out because while you're mixing in the water and the wet ingredients, you're going to need to add more flour or maybe more water depending on the consistency of the dough, so definitely leave the flour still out. Next I'm adding a teaspoon of sugar, 1 envelope of yeast, 2 teaspoons of salt. So I'm just going to start with mixing everything in. The recipe does say if you have a stand mixer, like now would be the time to bust it out, but we bone on a budget over here, so we're just going to use our arms. Now that everything is mixed evenly, I'm going to start with adding in the water little by little as I keep mixing. Now at this point, while you're mixing in the water, you're going to want to add in the 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You're going to see that I'm going to do it later because your girl forgot, but pretty much add the 2 tablespoons of olive oil and then start with mixing in the water little by little, and you just want to have good control with making sure that you're not just pouring in a bunch of water. And also the water is supposed to be warm. It's at about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I believe I started with a cup of water and I warmed it up in the microwave for about a minute or so. And then after I finished up that cup of adding and mixing it in, I warmed up the half cup of water and then I just mixed it in little by little. But depending on the temperature and when you're mixing the dough, you're really going to want to make sure that it's not tacky or sticking. So if your dough is really tacky, you're going to want to add more flour. But if it's pretty dried out, you're going to want to add more water, but you're going to really have to pay attention and get in there with your hands and really feel out the dough. Next I'm adding the 2 tablespoons of olive oil that I forgot from earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and mix it in. Next, I'm going to start kneading the dough with my hands. So to make sure it doesn't stick, I'm going to coat my hands evenly, kind of like a light dusting with the flour. And the motion I'm going to use is basically I'm going to be folding the dough in half and then pressing down with the ball of my hand. While I'm kneading, I'm just going to pay attention to any areas that stick to my hand, and if there's any stickiness, I'm going to go in and add just a light dusting of flour. Again, you're definitely going to want to pay attention to how much you're adding. Like, you want to do little by little, like don't add a bunch of flour and just start kneading. Just make sure it's a light dusting and you're really paying attention to if it sticks to your hand, add a little bit of flour. If it's really dry, add more water. You want to do little by little at a time. So the way that I know that I'm done kneading the flour is when the elasticity is the same throughout the entire dough. So no matter how much I keep kneading it, like it's the same consistency throughout the entire thing. And then also looking at the dough, I don't see any white spots like where the flour hasn't been mixed in. Once you're done kneading the dough, you're going to want to get a bowl and grease it with 2 teaspoons of olive oil. Also, I accidentally added more than 2 teaspoons of olive oil, so if it looks slightly off, that's why. Then you're going to take the dough, place it in the bowl, and you're going to cover it with plastic wrap and allow it to rest for 1 hour. So you're going to want to get a decently sized bowl because it's going to double in size and it's going to rise a lot. So definitely get a decent sized bowl. The one I used was aight, but I could have gotten a bigger one. But yeah, be prepared to see it rise. While I'm waiting for the dough to rise, I'm going to work on prepping the toppings for the pizza. So I'm just chopping up 2 cloves of garlic, just about half of a small onion, half of a red bell pepper, and after washing it off, about a handful of cilantro. After an hour of the dough rising, it's going to look like this. Before I take the dough out, I'm just going to prep the surface I'm going to be working on and apply a light dusting of flour. Then I'm going to take the dough out and apply it directly to that surface. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half. I'm going to go ahead and start kneading the dough until all the flour that I put on the surface disappears and is mixed in evenly. Then I'm going to cover the dough with plastic again and allow it to rest for 10 more minutes. Once the 10 minutes is up, I'm going to start shaping the dough into the pizza pies. So at this point, like if you have a rolling pin, you can go ahead and use it. I decided to just use my hands. I just want to use my hands. So pretty much you'll see, like, as I'm doing it, like I kind of made the dough thicker than it needed to be, because there are parts of the dough that when you're stretching it out, it's gonna feel like it's really thin, but when you put it in the oven and it bakes, it's gonna rise. So you can pretty much stretch these doughs out as much as you like, depending on how thick or thin you want the crust, or just the inner part or portion of the pizza. But yeah, you can stretch it as much as you want. If you want to make it more like the size that I did, go ahead and do that, but it's really up to whatever you want. Moving on to the surface that I'm going to be baking the pizza on, I'm going to go ahead and spray it with cooking spray so it doesn't stick. So this part is optional. I'm just sprinkling a bit of cornmeal onto the surface before I put the pizza down. I'd say that this is more of like, it adds like a nice texture to like the under surface of the pizza, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. I'm going to go ahead and place the pizza dough on the pan. So each pizza I bake separately. So you're going to want to preheat the oven for 500 degrees, and it's going to take 15 minutes for them to bake individually. I'm very like OCD about making sure pretty much that both pizzas bake evenly at the same height in the oven, so that's why I like to bake them separately and not really just put one in and put one at another part of the oven, because I really want the distance in the oven to be the same for each pizza. Moving on to the toppings, I'm gonna start off with the sauce. It's actually pasta sauce, but it's fire, so we gonna do it. And I'm just spreading the sauce around with the spoon. After the sauce, I'm gonna go ahead and put on the cilantro. So guys, don't sleep on cilantro. Let me tell you something. Cilantro though, like, don't sleep on it, okay? So I like to put the cilantro on after the sauce, because I feel like it's one of those like hidden flavors. Once you're like biting into the pizza and having it mixed with the sauce, it's fire. Just take my word for it, it's fire. Just put the cilantro on, all right? Just do it. After that, I'm going to go ahead and apply the cheese. So I'm going to be adding this 4-cheese Mexican blend. I believe it's cheddar and other types of cheddar. Your girl can't remember right now, but yeah, I'm going to add that cheese, and I'm also going to put on mozzarella, and it just adds like a nice like variety of cheese for the pizza. After that, I'm going to go ahead and add all the other ingredients that I chopped up earlier. Also, your girl was a little sneaky when she was chopping up the ingredients earlier and made some chicken, so I'm going to be adding that too. So since we're done with our toppings and our oven is preheated to 500 degrees, I'm going to go ahead and put the pizza in the oven for 15 minutes. Once our pizzas are done and out of the oven, this is what they look like. So as you guys can see, the the crust is very thick. So like I was saying earlier, if you want the crust to be thinner and you also just want like a bigger pizza overall, go ahead and keep stretching the dough out, because like I said, it may feel really thin when you're stretching it, but once you put it in the oven, it comes back out like she thick, okay? So that's it for today's video. If you guys end up making this recipe, go ahead and tag me at RaishPhoenix. I will have the recipe in the description box below if you need to reference it. And bless up, guys. Sending out much peace, love, and enlightenment. Bye, guys.